This is the part about Diagon Alley in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and if you can see, it's coming apart here. We know it is because he knows his days are numbered. Before we get started, I have a grand reveal. It is something I'm very, very excited about. Hello everybody, welcome to Muggles and Mocha. Before we get started, I have a grand reveal. It is something I'm very, very excited about. And it was a Christmas present that I told you guys about in my last article. I'll plug that video up here somewhere and you can look at it if you missed that last week. But I got this for Christmas from my parents. Look at it. It is our own Muggles and Mocha mug. And I just think it is fantastic. It has always on the back of it. And I would show you the bottom, but it'll spill if I do. But oh gosh, how can I do this? There, you can see it. There's a snitch on the bottom. So yeah, if you have just stumbled in here by now, you may have realized that this is a Harry Potter book club. It's connected to my editing website, MadisonKdarby.com. I put up videos throughout the weeks. I write articles on different individual topics from each chapter. You can check out the article for this week in the description box below, as well as my website and also my social media handles. You can follow me there and just follow us along on this journey through the Harry Potter books once again for many of us. Also, if you like this video, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can be updated when new videos come out. We are currently in the middle of Prisoner of Azkaban. I say the middle, we're kind of still at the beginning. We're covering chapter 4 today, all about the Leaky Cauldron. And I'm gonna go ahead and jump into this because we have a lot to cover. Like, for a chapter that's about Harry hanging out in Diagon Alley, there's so many little plot points that are set up in this chapter. So I'm excited to dive into it with you guys. So where we left off is Harry is currently in Diagon Alley, and man, what a time to be alive. I remember reading this part as a kid and just getting so excited thinking about, you know, living in this magical community, this street that has all these wonderful shops. You know, in the first Harry Potter movie, when Harry first walks into Diagon Alley, it is just beautiful and magical. Every wonderful adjective to see Diagon Alley in all of its glory. And speaking of the magic of Diagon Alley, I have to show y'all something else I got. Some of you might have this already. I didn't see this like talked about very much in Harry Potter news or like with new things that are coming out, but there's this book that you can just find at your local store, whether it be, you know, Walmart, Meijer, Target probably, I don't know. I saw it in Walmart and I ended up getting it as a present, but y'all, it is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and it just has so many cool things in here. You know what, I might just make a video about this thing. I think I'm gonna make a video about it, so I won't talk about it too much here. But of course, like, it has some great art in it, but you can see like it's kind of thick through here, and it's because it has little pop-ups. But I will show you, the reason I pulled this book out is because in Diagon Alley, let's see if I can do this without it falling all over the place. This is the part about Diagon Alley in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and if you can see, it's coming apart here. Okay, I'm just gonna have to show y'all one side at a time, but it opens up to reveal the whole street. Like, look at that. Oh my goodness. This is so awkward. It's very hard to hold this, but hopefully you can kind of see for the most part what that looks like. Ah! But yeah, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, that wonderful gem, is out in stores right now. But anyway, back to the story. Harry is in Diagon Alley. I loved reading this scene as a kid, and it always made me feel excited about like the idea of living in an uptown or downtown area, you know, living over a shop or something, which I actually do that now. Now that I think about it, I live in an apartment over a coffee shop that is below me, and I don't take advantage of that like I should, honestly. I need to get out more. We see Harry going around Diagon Alley, going to the different stores, seeing new people. One of these people that he meets is Florine Fortescue. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but you know who I'm talking about. He owns an ice cream parlor in Diagon Alley, and If you go to Universal Studios, you should go to his ice cream shop. They do have that in the Diagon Alley portion of Harry Potter World, and it is pretty yummy. But what's funny about this character is that he's actually the subject of what is called a ghost plot, which is a narrative that never made it into the final books. So we know that Harry meets him here in Prisoner of Azkaban. He's getting to know him. He's giving him some free ice cream. But then later on in the series, you'll remember that Fortescue is one of the people, along with Ollivander, who is kidnapped by the Death Eaters. They ransack his shop and take him. And like when you get to the end of the books, it's kind of something that seems to come to nothing. Like, I guess they just really had it in for the ice cream guy. I don't know. But there was actually a reason for that just didn't make it into Rowling's final editions of the book. I'll just read a little bit about what J.K. Rowling says about this. You can find it on the Wizarding World website. I'll put the link to that article below. But basically what she says is that she planned for Florian Fortescue to reveal clues to Harry during his quest for the Hallows. So as we find out here, he is an expert on medieval wizards, and then with his relationship to an ex-headmaster of Hogwarts, she just planned on him being someone who was very knowledgeable and knowing a lot of historical facts, maybe knowing a bit about the Elder Wand and the Diadem of Ravenclaw, and he was going to basically be someone who revealed these things to Harry. But apparently, as Rowling was writing through the books, she came to a point that she realized that Phineas Nigellus Black would be a better person to convey these clues, and then a lot of the other information he was going to be giving Harry was going to be revealed through the Grey Lady, so it felt a bit redundant. But yeah, that's why he gets kidnapped in the 6th book, is because originally she was planning on him having a bigger part in Harry's search for the Hallows. But I love what she says here at the end of the article. She says, "All in all, I seem to have him kidnapped and killed for no reason. He's not the first wizard whom Voldemort murdered because he knew too much or too little, but he is the only one I feel guilty about because it was all my fault." So yeah, the more you know. We move on, and Harry learns a bit about the Firebolt, which we know Harry will receive that later in the year. And he goes on to buy all of his school supplies. Something interesting that happens here is Harry sees a book about death omens, and he is staring at the huge black dog that is on the cover of the book. And I think it's really funny that for the majority of the year, Harry views this black dog as a bad omen of things to come, even death. And while death does happen in Harry's life later in the book, it turns out that this black dog represents something that he has wanted forever. He spends the whole time wanting to avoid this grim, this omen of death, when it is his godfather who turns out to be family. Which is what he's always been looking for. I find it interesting that Sirius's animagus form is of something that resembles a Grimm, and then he is one of the first people in Harry's life that he has to deal with dying. So in a way, it is the Grimm. I mean, I know Harry sees Cedric die. That represents something a little different. To me, this is the first person that Harry consciously loses, someone that he really loves and cares for, and it's someone who kind of is like the Grimm. I don't know, like the Grimm is interesting in this book series. Obviously, we're going to come back to it because Professor Trelawney just talks and talks about it. But if that's something you'd like me to make another video on, like something separate, that might be a fun idea to dive into. Just the irony behind Sirius looking like a Grimm and what it means in this book and in the books to come. So just let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to hear more about. Harry seeing this book cover kind of brings me to my article for this week as well. You can find that in the description box below. It is all about the foreshadowing that we see in this chapter because it is everywhere. We're going to be breaking down a couple of the instances that we see in this chapter. And let me just say, it is a lot of work to plant things like this early in the book in a way that isn't overbearing. Sometimes you read authors who are trying to insert foreshadowing, but then it's a little heavy-handed. That's especially true for kids' books, and for this being a kids' book, I think that, she does a good job at doing it in a way that's still hidden. Because for kids, obviously, they're younger than us adults, and so it might take a little bit more for them to catch on to things. So if you're reading kids' books as an adult, it might be really easy for you to see what is coming. That might be the case for some of you for the first Harry Potter book, Sorcerer's Stone, because she's needing the kids to be able to connect at the end of it and to look back and to see those little pieces. But then you get Prisoner of Azkaban, and there's so many things that happen at the beginning of this book that, how on earth are we supposed to connect them to things like Scabbers the rat? I am going to be coming back on that over and over again, because the reveal of him being Peter Pettigrew was so... what? I think she does a good job in this book at us looking back and seeing, that Scabbers is going through a lot here, obviously, and that it's connected to Sirius Black. Who knew? So anyway, the article below, that is what that's about. It's about how to write effective foreshadowing in novels and showing examples of how Rowling does it in this book specifically. Harry meets up with Ron and Hermione, finally. We see Hermione buying a lot of books, talking about taking more subjects this year, which is something else that is going to be coming back and working in a big way in this book. And Hermione decides to buy herself a present, which is Crookshanks the cat. And what a name. I looked up this name because I had an idea of why this was the chosen name for Crookshanks. But apparently, the story of the Crookshanks family, I'm reading something, so if it sounds like I'm reading something, I found this online. The story of the Crookshanks family begins in ancient Scotland among the Pictish clans. The Crookshanks family lived at or near the Cruick River in... I'm not going to say the name of this because... No, I'm going to do it. Just don't make fun of me. It was in Kincardineshire. I'm American. European listeners, please don't make fun of me. The word shank means a point of a hill. So apparently, it was talking about the top of a hill near this river, the Cruick River. And then the article says some people mistakenly think the name is a nickname for someone who has crooked shanks or was bow-legged, but this was not the case. So apparently that's not where the name came from, but I think in this instance, I think it was the inspiration behind this cat's name, and the reason that Hermione chose it is because we know he is a bow-legged cat, so... Crookshanks, there you go. Like I said, we do learn a bit about Scabbers here, which is probably my favorite bit of foreshadowing in this chapter. I'm gonna harp on it. He's sick, and Ron is worried about him, and for we the readers, we know it is because he knows his days are numbered. He is Sirius Black's intended victim, and he knows it. He knows that Sirius is after him, and it is eating him up. We also have the lady in the store mention that common garden rats shouldn't live past 3 years, which we and Ron and everyone else knows he's older than that. But, it doesn't... Something that's really good about this particular bit of foreshadowing is that it's not something that really stands out to us because first, we already knew it from the first book. We know he's an old rat. Second, this is taking place in a magical world, and usually the pets that Hogwarts students have at Hogwarts do possess some sort of magical abilities. We see this woman ask Ron what special abilities Scabbers has because that's something that's expected in the magical world. So when I was reading this, I remember just thinking that it brought more humor and character to Scabbers to me, like he's this rat that won't die. Ron's family has had him for so long, and that maybe his magical ability is just living a long life. So it doesn't really make it stand out to us as if there's something that's supposed to be going on here, something up with Scabbers that means he's a villain, because after all, we've known Scabbers for a while now. We've known him in the first and second books, and he is a trusted pet for us too. And you guys, this is something else I love too. Crookshanks knows what Scabbers is this whole time. You know, he attacks Scabbers here, and it is because he knows that there is something up with this rat. And something that's interesting, I've seen this go around on forums before, asking about, like, could Crookshanks have secretly been an animagus? You know, this is when people are first reading the books, but I saw that that was a theory. You know, like, what are we going to find out more about Crookshanks, that he is some sort of magical being? And actually, he is a half Kneazle. A Kneazle is, you know, I wouldn't say like a magical cat, but it's a different kind of creature. It's a more magical creature. If you guys have played that Hogwarts mystery app game, I think Kneazles are in that, and you can have them as a pet. But Kneazles are highly intelligent, and they have the uncanny ability to detect untrustworthy individuals. So that's what we see from Crookshanks here. He is half Kneazle, so he does have a bit of that, I guess you'd call it magical ability to see that Scabbers is the most untrustworthy of individuals. You know, we've already seen the sneakoscope go off. Earlier in Ron's letter to Harry, he mentions that. I personally think it was going off because Scabbers was there, and it's always acting up because Scabbers is around, and he might be the most untrustworthy individual that we learn about, because he's just not loyal to anyone or anything except for himself. So Harry meets up with the rest of the Weasleys, finds out that they're going to be taking cars to the Ministry, which is a little weird when he first hears about it. But then everything becomes clear because he overhears Mr. and Mrs. Weasley arguing about him. He does a bit of eavesdropping. He hears Mr. Weasley especially talking about how Sirius Black is after Harry, that the Ministry thinks that Harry is the intended victim that Black is after, because Black was muttering he's at Hogwarts in his sleep. And again, I'm going to talk about this so much. Man, this is so clever, because we know he's talking about Peter Pettigrew. But here, how on earth would we have known that this is about Scabbers the rat? It is just brilliant, because not only does it increase our fear of Sirius Black, we've already heard about him for a couple of chapters now, and even though we didn't know at this point that he had anything to do with Harry, he's still a dangerous individual that's going to be out in the wizarding world. So you have that. You learn he's after Harry, and then hearing this, it just builds the fear and distrust that you have for this character without giving anything away. But in the end, it could work toward us seeing that it was actually Scabbers that he was after. Man, I'm just thinking of so many video ideas, guys. We're gonna have to do one about just the Marauders and what's revealed in this book about their friendship. I can't get ahead of myself. We got to keep going. So now Harry realizes that all of this that has been happening to him so far, with Fudge letting him off easy, wanting him to stay at the Leaky Cauldron and, you know, just to keep safe, is all because of Sirius Black, that these people are trying to protect him from a mass murderer that is after him. But guys, at the end of this chapter, Harry is thinking about Hogsmeade again. I forgot about this, how much he's thinking about Hogsmeade this whole time. Because I think, what is the wording? He straight up says that that's the thing that bothers him the most, that the chances of visiting Hogsmeade now looked like zero because no one's going to want Harry to go out with this mass murderer after him. And I love this fixation on the Hogsmeade letter, because I think that it just really makes the satisfaction of Sirius signing it in the end just so nice. I feel like I need a more powerful word than that. But, you know, it's one of the first things that we see Sirius do as a guardian for Harry. And seeing Harry want this so bad, you know, wanting someone to sign this permission slip for him and then having Sirius be the one that does it, it just emphasizes how important it is for Harry to have someone like this in his life, someone that he can view as family and who loves him and wants to take care of him. And oh my gosh, this book, y'all, oh man, I'm just thinking about my book ranking and where is this gonna fall? I like this book a lot. Yeah, if you've seen that video, I'll put it up here somewhere. Someday I will learn which way it is. You guys may have seen that I did a book ranking, and right now, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban and Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire are tied. Which one is gonna win? I don't know. A lot of you are saying Goblet of Fire, and I think I agree with you. One of those people is my husband. He loves the Goblet of Fire, and I know that book is super awesome. But there's just something about this book I love so much, so it is going to be a hard decision when it comes down to it for where that's going to fall. I love the end of this chapter. No, all in all, the thing that bothered Harry most was the fact that his chances of visiting Hogsmeade now looked like zero. Nobody would want Harry to leave the safety of the castle until Black was caught. In fact, Harry suspected his every move would be carefully watched until the danger had passed. He scowled at the dark ceiling. Did they think he couldn't look after himself? He'd escaped Lord Voldemort 3 times. He wasn't completely useless. Unbidden, the image of the beast in the shadows of Magnolia Crescent crossed his mind. What to do when you know the worst is coming? I'm not going to be murdered, Harry said out loud. That's the spirit, dear, said his mirror sleepily. Oh, I don't know what it is about the end of that chapter. I think it's well written. It's connecting so many things right now. Like, you know, we're getting Harry's worry that Sirius might be after him. I mean, he doesn't really show it here, but of course he's worried, especially when it comes to the Grim and like death and is that real or not? But then it's just really interesting to see Harry's thoughts on this. We can see him changing here. I don't use the word maturing because obviously he is in his 13-year-old state. You know, like, do they think I can't look after myself? I'm getting older. And for the record, he has faced Voldemort 3 times. But there's just something about that age that you don't really want people looking after you. You want them to think that you're independent and that you can take care of yourself. So it's just interesting seeing Harry grow in this way. But we do see him growing more comfortable in the situations he's finding himself in, being faced with death and danger all the time, which is sad, but it's where he is. And that is that for today. That is the end of chapter 4. Again, the article is below, and gosh, I don't have to say it again, but I'm loving this book. Even we're still at the beginning, but seeing it all build and knowing the conclusion that it's going to reach is just so exciting. And something I'm excited about is next chapter. Chapter 5 is all about Dementors and the trip to Hogwarts, and I am just really ready to talk about Dementors. It's going to be some heavy stuff. We're going to talk about them a couple of times in this book. Next week, we'll discuss J.K. Rowling's inspiration behind Dementors. Some of you may know that already, but I'm very excited to focus in on that. And then we're going to talk about the fact that they're Harry's biggest fear. And what does that really mean? You know, later on, Lupin says, actually, wow, what are the chances of this? It is the quote on the back of my book. That was what I was just about to say. Lupin tells Harry that his fear of Dementors, and that being what the Boggart transforms into, means that what he fears most of all is fear. And like, what does that really mean? We're going to be talking about that too. That's an article we'll have coming later on, probably when Boggarts are introduced. But yeah, at this point in the book, Harry has no idea the impact that these creatures are going to have on him. At this point, he just knows that people are afraid of them, that they don't like them at all. But little does he know, they are going to have a huge effect on him and be one of his least favorite parts of the wizarding world as well. So that is all for today. Thanks for tuning in to our video. Next week, like I said, we're going to be talking all about Chapter 5, The Dementor, and we're going back to Hogwarts on board the Hogwarts Express. It's going to be a fun chapter, so meet us back here next week. I will see you next time. Goodbye.